A young boy, no older than 10, crashed through the heavy glass doors of the police station, his small chest rising and falling with frantic breaths. His dark skin glistened with sweat, and his hands clutched a tiny, pale-skinned baby wrapped in a blanket. The officers behind the desk looked up, startled, as the boy's voice rang through the station, loud and urgent. "Arrest my mom," he shouted, his voice trembling with both fear and determination. The officers exchanged quick glances, momentarily stunned by the sight before them. A child, barely able to carry the baby in his arms, was demanding something no kid should ever have to. One officer, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, slowly approached the boy, lowering himself to his level. "Hey, son," he said gently. "Slow down. Tell me what's going on." The boy's eyes darted around the room as if afraid someone might be following him. He clutched the baby closer, his small fingers gripping the blanket so tightly his knuckles turned white. She's gonna hurt him," he stammered. "You have to stop her." The baby let out a soft whimper, and the boy quickly rocked him, his movements careful, protective, like he had done this before. The officer's heart clenched at the sight. What had this boy seen? What had he been through to run straight into? A police station begging for help? Another officer, a woman with a sharp but compassionate face, approached, keeping her voice calm. "Okay, we're listening. What's your name?" The boy hesitated, shifting on his feet. "Tyler," he finally said. "And this is Noah." He looked down at the baby, his eyes filled with something much older than his years. "Is he your brother?" the female officer asked. Tyler shook his head. "No," he said softly. "But I have to save him." The officers could feel the weight of his words, the urgency behind them. Something was very, very wrong. "Where's your mom, Tyler?" the first officer asked. Tyler's lips pressed together. He took a deep breath, his little body shaking, then whispered, "She's coming." Just then the station doors swung open. A cold gust of wind rushed inside, and the air in the room changed. The officers turned toward the entrance. A tall, disheveled woman stood in the doorway, her eyes wild, scanning the room until they locked onto the boy and the baby in his arms. Tyler took a step back, his grip on Noah tightening. "Give him to me," the woman demanded, her voice dangerously low. The room fell into silence, tension crackling in the air. Officers shifted subtly, preparing for whatever was about to unfold. Tyler shook his head. "No," he said, his voice small, but firm. "You can't have him." The woman took a step forward, but so did the officers, and in that moment everything hung in the balance. Tyler's small hands trembled as he clutched Noah closer to his chest. The baby stirred but didn't cry, as if sensing the fear pulsing through the boy's body. The officers stood still, their eyes shifting between the terrified child and the woman who had just stormed into the station. The woman's gaze was locked on the baby. Her breath came fast and shallow, and her hands twitched at her sides. "Tyler," she said, her voice softer this time, but something in her tone made the boy flinch. "You know better than this. Give me the baby now." Tyler shook his head fiercely. "No," he said, his voice stronger now, though his knees felt weak. "I won't." The officers stepped forward, placing themselves between Tyler and the woman. The first officer, the one with kind eyes, raised a hand in a calming gesture. "Ma'am," he said, his voice steady, "we need you to step back and explain what's going on here." The woman's eyes flicked to the officer, then back to Tyler. "He's lying," she snapped. "He doesn't know what he's talking about. That baby belongs to me." Tyler's grip on Noah tightened. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst right out of his chest. He wanted to yell, to tell them everything, but the words were stuck, trapped under the weight of fear pressing down on him. The female officer crouched beside Tyler, keeping her voice soft. "Tyler," she said, "you said you needed our help. Can you tell us why?" Tyler hesitated. His mind raced. What if they didn't believe him? What if they gave Noah back? He swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. "She's not his mom," he whispered. She took him. She wasn't supposed to." The woman's expression darkened. "That's not true," she shouted, stepping forward, but two officers quickly blocked her path. "Ma'am, we need you to calm down," one of them said firmly. "We're going to figure this out, but we need to talk to both of you separately." The woman let out a harsh laugh, shaking her head. "You're listening to a kid over me? That's ridiculous." The tension in the room thickened. Tyler could feel the officers watching him closely now, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern. The female officer nodded toward a nearby bench. "Tyler, let's sit down for a moment, okay?" He hesitated, then slowly let her guide him to the bench. Noah squirmed in his arms, making soft noises, and Tyler gently rocked him, his fingers stroking the baby's tiny hand. The officer sat beside him, her voice calm. "Can you tell me everything, from the beginning?" Tyler swallowed hard and nodded. He had come this far. He couldn't stop now. "It started last night," he said. "I was in my room when I heard yelling downstairs. At first I thought it was just another fight. She yells a lot, you know. But then I heard the baby crying. It sounded different. Like, really scared." The officer nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I snuck downstairs and I saw her holding Noah, but he wasn't wearing any clothes, just a diaper. She was wrapping him in a blanket real fast, like she was in a hurry. I asked her what she was doing, but she just looked at me real weird and said, 'Go back to bed, Tyler, you didn't see anything.'" Tyler's throat tightened. He looked down at Noah, his small fingers still curled around his own. "But I did see. I saw her grab a bag and head for the door. She was going to take him somewhere, and I just knew something was wrong." The officer's eyes softened. "So what did you do?" Tyler bit his lip. "I waited till she went to the bathroom, then I took Noah and ran." "You ran?" "Yeah." Tyler nodded quickly. "I didn't know where to go, but I remembered this place. I've seen it before when we drive by. I thought maybe you guys would help." The officer took a deep breath. This wasn't just some kid throwing a tantrum. He truly believed the baby was in danger, but there were still too many questions. "Tyler," she asked carefully, "do you know who Noah's real parents are?" Tyler looked down. "No," he admitted. "But it's not her." Across the room, the woman was pacing, her hands clenched into fists. One of the officers was talking to her, but she kept shaking her head, her movements sharp, frantic. The female officer stood up and whispered something to the others. Then she turned back to Tyler. "Listen, buddy, you did the right thing by coming. Here. But we need to check some things, okay?" Tyler's stomach twisted. "You're not going to give him back to her, right?" "We just need to figure out the truth," she said gently. "We need to know who Noah really belongs to." Just then, a loud knock echoed from the station's front doors. An officer walked over and opened them, revealing a man and woman standing outside, their faces pale with worry. The woman clutched a baby's blanket to her chest, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Noah. Her breath hitched. Tyler felt the baby stir again in his arms, as if he too knew something big was about to happen. The woman let out a choked sob. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's him. That's my baby." Tyler's eyes widened. The room fell silent. And in that moment, everything changed. The moment the woman's voice broke through the tense silence, Tyler felt his grip on. Noah tightened instinctively. He didn't know this woman, but the raw emotion in her eyes, the desperate, broken kind, made his heart pound even harder. Noah let out a tiny whimper, his fingers twitching against Tyler's chest. The man beside the woman stepped forward, his face pale, his hands shaking. "That's our son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Please tell us he's okay." Tyler didn't move. He wasn't sure what to think. He had run into the police station to protect Noah, to keep him safe from her, but now these people were here, claiming to be the baby's real parents. His mind swirled with questions. Could they be telling the truth? If they were, then what did that mean about everything else? The officers looked between Tyler and the couple, their own expressions unreadable. The female officer crouched beside him again, her voice soft but steady. Tyler, I know this is a lot, but we need to figure out what's going on. Can we talk a little more? Tyler swallowed hard. His mouth felt dry, but he managed to nod. Across the room, the woman, the one Tyler had run from, let out a cold, sharp laugh. "Oh, this is just great," she muttered, shaking her head. "You're seriously listening to these people? Do you even know who they are?" The couple flinched at her words, but the man quickly turned back to the officers. "We filed a report," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "A missing child report, 2 days ago. Someone took our son. His voice cracked, and he took a deep breath as if steadying himself. "We didn't know if we'd ever see him again." The female officer straightened, her expression serious now. "I'll check our system," she said. "If there's a missing child report, we'll find it." She gave Tyler a reassuring nod before stepping away. Tyler barely noticed. His mind was still spinning. The woman, the one he had always called Mom, shook her head again, her arms crossed tightly. "They're lying," she snapped. "I don't know what kind of game they're playing, but that baby is mine. This kid," she jabbed a finger at Tyler, her eyes flashing. "He's confused. He's just making stuff up." Tyler flinched at the sharpness in her voice. But then something inside him hardened. No, he wasn't confused. He wasn't making anything up. He knew what he saw. He turned toward the officers, his voice quiet but firm. "She lied before," he said. "She told me Noah was ours, but I knew something wasn't right. She was acting weird, scared. And she never let me hold him before. Never. But that night, she was in a hurry. She was gonna leave. I knew I had to do something." The woman's face twisted with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about. Tyler!" He flinched, but the officer beside him placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Let's keep our voices calm," she said firmly, before looking back at the woman. "We'll figure out what's true and what's not." The tension in the room was thick, pressing down on everyone like a heavy weight. Then the female officer returned, a folder in her hand. She glanced at her partner before speaking. "We found the report," she said. "A missing baby, taken 2 days ago. The details match. The name matches." Tyler's stomach dropped. The woman, the one he had spent his whole life calling Mom, went still. Her face tightened, but then, just as quickly, she forced a cold, smug smile. "So?" she scoffed. "People make false reports all the time. Maybe they took him from me." The real mother let out a quiet sob, shaking her head. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not true." She turned to Tyler now, her voice pleading. "Sweetheart, please. You saved him. You kept him safe. But I need to hold my baby, please." Tyler looked down at Noah. The baby was awake now, his big, round eyes blinking up at him. For a second, Tyler felt his heart squeeze. He had spent the last 2 days protecting him, keeping him warm, making sure he was safe. He had thought known that was the right thing to do. But now he wasn't sure what to do next. The officers were still talking, their voices low but serious. Tyler caught bits and pieces, DNA tests, further investigation, need to be sure, but it all blurred together. His world felt like it was tipping over. Then he felt a shadow move in front of him. He looked up, just in time to see her. The woman he had run from. She was looking at him now, her eyes dark, unreadable. And for the first time, Tyler saw something in them he had never fully noticed before. Fear. Not fear of losing the baby, not fear of being separated, but fear of the truth coming out. His hands clenched around Noah's blanket. The officers were still watching her closely. "Ma'am," one of them said, his voice edged with warning. "We need you to stay where you are." She let out a breathless, almost amused chuckle. "Oh," she said. "Of course." But something about the way she said it sent a chill down Tyler's spine. Then, before anyone could react, she moved, a quick, sudden lunge, her arms reaching out straight for Noah. Tyler gasped, his body tensing, and everything erupted at once.